I'm not cooking for 30 people on Thanksgiving by myself, I told my son Marcus over the phone. He laughed at me, that condescending chuckle I'd grown to hate over the years. Come on, Mom. You always do it. Everyone expects it. Besides, Aunt Linda can't host this year with her back surgery, and you know how small Uncle Pete's apartment is. His voice carried that familiar tone of dismissal, as if my feelings didn't matter. I stood in my kitchen, staring at the list I'd been making for weeks. 32 people, 3 turkeys, 17 side dishes, 4 different desserts because God forbid anyone compromise on their favorites. And me, alone, handling it all while everyone else showed up with their appetites and opinions. Marcus, I'm 68 years old. I've been doing this for 45 years, every single Thanksgiving, every Christmas, every Easter. I'm tired. But you're so good at it, Mom. Remember last year? Everyone raved about your stuffing. And your pumpkin pie? Come on, nobody makes it like you do. The compliments felt hollow. I'd heard them all before, right before everyone disappeared to watch football while I cleaned up alone. My arthritis had been acting up for months. My back ached constantly. And the thought of standing in this kitchen for 3 straight days made me want to cry. What if I said no this time? I asked quietly. Marcus paused, and I could hear his wife Sarah in the background asking who he was talking to. You won't say no, Mom. You never do. You love having everyone together. It's your thing. My thing. As if feeding an army was some sort of hobby I enjoyed, rather than an obligation I'd been trapped in for decades. I thought about my sister Linda, who always complained about the menu, but never offered to help. My brother Pete, who showed up empty-handed but left with enough leftovers to feed his family for a week. My daughter-in-law Sarah, who spent the entire meal taking Instagram photos of rustic family gatherings while I sweated over the stove. Marcus, I need help this year. Real help. Not someone bringing a bag of rolls from the grocery store and calling it contributing. I need people in this kitchen with me, sharing the load. He sighed. Mom, you know how crazy everyone's schedules are. Besides, too many cooks spoil the broth, right? You're the expert here. Expert. Another word that sounded like praise but felt like a prison sentence. I'd become so good at this that everyone had forgotten I was human, that I might want to sit at the table and enjoy conversation instead of jumping up every 5 minutes to check on something in the oven. What if I hired a caterer this year? I suggested. A caterer? For Thanksgiving? Mom, that's not the same. It wouldn't be real Thanksgiving without your cooking. The kids would be so disappointed. The kids, my grandchildren, who barely looked up from their phones long enough to eat. Who complained when the mashed potatoes weren't smooth enough or when I tried to serve something healthy alongside the traditional fare? I walked to my dining room and looked at the table that would soon strain under the weight of dishes I'd spend days preparing. The same table where I'd sat as a young mother, eagerly volunteering to host because I wanted to create magical memories. Somehow, along the way, the magic had transformed into martyrdom. Marcus, I'm serious. I can't do this alone anymore. You're not alone, Mom. We'll all be there. You'll all be there to eat. That's different. The silence stretched between us. Finally, he spoke, his voice carrying a hint of irritation. Fine. I'll ask Sarah to come early and help with something. Maybe she can bring a salad or something. A salad. For 32 people. I almost laughed at the absurdity of it. After I hung up, I sat at my kitchen table with my cup of coffee growing cold. The house felt suffocating in its silence. This was supposed to be about gratitude, about family, about love. Instead, it had become an elaborate performance where I played the role of the selfless matriarch while everyone else played the part of grateful recipients. I thought about my late husband Robert, how he used to help me in the kitchen, how we'd laugh together while preparing meals. He'd been gone 5 years now, but I'd kept up the tradition because stopping felt like letting everyone down. But what about letting myself down? My phone buzzed with a text from my daughter Jennifer. Can't?
Wait for Thursday.
BTW, bringing Kevin's new girlfriend. She's vegan. Can you make sure there are options for her? Thanks. XOXO. A vegan. 3 days before Thanksgiving. Of course. I stared at that text for a long time, feeling something shift inside me. Something that had been building for years finally reached its breaking point. I picked up my phone and started typing. The next morning, I woke up with a clarity I hadn't felt in years. My phone showed 17 missed calls and 43 text messages, all variations of outrage and disbelief. Word had spread quickly about the text I'd sent to the family group chat at midnight. Thanksgiving is canceled this year. Make other plans. Jennifer was the first to call back. Mom, what do you mean canceled? You can't cancel Thanksgiving. I just did. But what about the kids? What about tradition? Mom, are you having some kind of breakdown? The assumption that wanting to take care of myself meant I was mentally unstable spoke volumes. I'd raised 4 children, managed a household, worked part-time, at the library for 20 years, and cared for my mother until she died. Yet the moment I prioritized my own well-being, I was having a breakdown. I'm having a breakthrough, actually. My sister Linda called next, her voice shrill with panic. Eleanor, you cannot do this. I've already told Bob's mother we're having dinner at your place. She's driving down from Albany. Then you'd better start thawing a turkey, Linda. I can't. Cook! You know I can't cook. Your back was fine enough to go on that cruise last month. The excuses came flooding in throughout the day. Pete's apartment was too small. Jennifer didn't have the right dishes. Marcus didn't know how to cook a turkey. Sarah was too busy with her photography business. Everyone had a reason why they couldn't step up, why it had to be me. By noon, I'd turned off my phone and driven to the grocery store. But instead of filling my cart with turkey and all the fixings, I bought ingredients for a meal for one. Nice piece of salmon, fresh asparagus, a small sweet potato, a bottle of wine I'd been saving for a special occasion. If that wasn't special enough, what was? Mrs. Henderson from next door stopped me in the produce section. Eleanor, getting ready for the big day? I always admire how you manage such a crowd. Not this year, Helen. This year I'm cooking for one. Her face fell. Oh, honey, are you all right? Where's your family going? They're learning to take care of themselves. I could see her processing this, trying to understand how a grandmother could abandon her family duties. The same look I'd been getting all day from people who couldn't fathom a woman choosing herself over others' expectations. At home, I poured myself a glass of wine and sat in Robert's old chair. The house felt different already, lighter somehow. I wasn't dreading the next few days for the first time in decades. No lists to make, no shopping to finish, no endless prep work that would leave me exhausted before the guests even arrived. My phone, still turned off, sat silently on the coffee table. I knew the messages were piling up, but I wasn't ready to face them yet. This moment of peace was too precious. I thought about Robert, how he would have supported this decision. He'd watched me slowly disappear under the weight of everyone's expectations, had tried to get me to set boundaries years ago. You can't pour from an empty cup, Ellie, he'd said. I wished I'd listened sooner. The doorbell rang around 4 o'clock. I peeked through the window and saw Marcus standing on my porch, looking agitated. I took my time answering. Mom, we need to talk. Come in. He paced my living room like a caged animal. This is insane. You're really going to let the whole family scatter to restaurants and friends' houses instead of being together? They're choosing to scatter, Marcus. I offered an alternative. What? Alternative? Someone else could host. Someone else could coordinate. Someone else could take responsibility for keeping this family together instead of assuming it's always going to be me. He stopped pacing. But you're good at it. You enjoy it. When did I tell you I enjoyed it? The question hung in the air. He couldn't answer because I'd never said it. I'd complained plenty over the years, but everyone had learned to dismiss my concerns as temporary stress rather than genuine dissatisfaction. Jennifer's crying, he said finally. The kids are upset. The kids will survive eating turkey at a restaurant. Jennifer will figure out how to explain to Kevin's vegan girlfriend that someone else is cooking this year. You're being selfish. There it was. The accusation I'd been expecting. The word that had controlled me for years. The fear of being seen. As selfish, keeping me trapped in a role I'd outgrown. Yes, I said simply. I am being selfish. And it feels wonderful. Hey everyone. I hope you're enjoying this story so far. I'd love to know where you're watching from. Drop a comment and let me know your city or country. This story is just getting started, and trust me, there are some major twists coming that will change everything you think you know about Eleanor's situation. Make sure to like this video and subscribe so you don't miss what happens next. Thanksgiving. Morning arrived crisp and beautiful. I woke up naturally without an alarm for the first time in years during the holiday season. No turkey to put in the oven at dawn, no last-minute grocery runs, no frantic cleaning because people would be judging my house. I made myself coffee and sat on my back porch, watching the sunrise paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. Silence was profound and peaceful. This was what Thanksgiving morning should feel like, grateful and calm, not stressed and overwhelmed. My phone had been buzzing intermittently since I'd turned it back on. The family group chat had exploded, overnight with messages ranging from guilt trips to anger to desperate pleading. Linda had found a restaurant that could accommodate 8 people, but was charging premium holiday prices. Pete was driving to his ex-wife's family dinner, hat in hand. Jennifer was attempting to cook for the first time in years and having a meltdown. About timing. Marcus had sent me a private message. Mom, I found a hotel doing Thanksgiving dinner. It's expensive, but I'll pay for everyone if you'll just come. The family needs to be together. The family needs to be together. Not, we want to be with you, or we miss you, or we're sorry we took you for granted. The family needs to be together. As if we were some abstract concept rather than individual people with individual needs. I was formulating my response when my doorbell rang. Through the window, I saw a young woman I didn't recognize, maybe 25, with kind eyes and an uncertain smile. She was holding a casserole dish. Mrs. Morrison? I'm Amanda. I live in the apartment complex behind your house. I hope you don't mind me bothering you. Not at all, dear. How can I help you? Well, this might sound strange, but my grandmother used to live in your neighborhood, and she always talked about the wonderful woman who hosted these huge Thanksgiving dinners every year. When I moved here last month, Mrs. Henderson pointed out your house and told me you were that woman. I invited her in, curious about where this was going. The thing is, Amanda continued, settling into my living room, I'm alone this Thanksgiving. My family's all back in Oregon, and I couldn't afford to fly home from graduate school. Mrs. Henderson mentioned yesterday that you weren't hosting this year, that you were going to be alone too, and I thought, well, maybe we could be alone. Together? She held up the casserole dish. I made green bean casserole. It's probably terrible. I'm learning to cook. But I thought you might not want to cook today after all those years of feeding everyone. Something in my chest loosened. Here was someone thinking about my needs, offering companionship without expectations, bringing something to contribute rather than just showing up to be fed. That sounds lovely, Amanda. I was planning to make salmon. Would you like to stay for dinner? Her face lit up. Really? That would be amazing. I have wine too, if you drink wine. As we cooked together, I learned Amanda was getting her master's in social work, specializing in elder care. She talked about her research on caregiver burnout, how women in particular got trapped in roles that seemed loving but were actually exploitative. It's fascinating and sad, she said, chopping vegetables while I prepared the fish. These women give and give until they disappear, and everyone around them just takes it for granted. They call it love, but really it's a kind of emotional labor that nobody acknowledges or values properly. I paused in my seasoning. What do you mean? Well, like holiday hosting. Everyone focuses on how nice it is that families get together, but somebody has to do all the actual work to make it happen. Usually a woman, usually unpaid, unappreciated, and expected to be grateful for the privilege. She had no idea how perfectly she'd described my life, but her words felt like validation I'd been craving for years. "What would you tell someone in that situation?" I asked. "That love shouldn't require martyrdom. That saying no to being used doesn't mean saying no to love. That healthy relationships involve reciprocity, not one person sacrificing everything for others' comfort." We ate our simple dinner by candlelight, sharing stories and laughing together. Amanda told me about her childhood, her dreams of changing how society treats aging women. I found myself opening up about Robert, about my children, about the slow erosion of my identity under the weight of everyone's expectations. "You know what I admire about what you did?" Amanda said over dessert, store-bought pie that tasted better than any elaborate creation I'd ever made. "You chose yourself without apologizing for it. You didn't try to manage everyone else's emotions or fix their problems. You just said no." My family thinks I'm being selfish. Good. Women are taught that self-preservation is selfish. But you can't take care of anyone else if you don't take care of yourself first. As evening fell, Amanda helped me clean up, something my own family rarely did. She hugged me goodbye and made me promise to call her if I wanted company over the weekend. After she left, I sat in my quiet house, feeling more grateful than I had in years. Not grateful for the burden of caring for others, but grateful for the gift of caring for myself. Grateful for unexpected friendship. Grateful for the courage to change a pattern that wasn't serving anyone, least of all me. My phone buzzed with another family message. This time, I didn't even read it. Whatever crisis they were manufacturing could wait. Tonight, I was exactly where I belonged. The day after Thanksgiving, I decided to tackle something I'd been avoiding for months, cleaning out Robert's study. I'd kept it exactly as he'd left it, partly from sentiment and partly from being too busy taking care of everyone else to deal with my own grief properly. I was going through his desk drawers when I found a folder labeled Eleanor's Dreams in his familiar handwriting. Inside were printouts of travel destinations, cooking classes in France, art workshops in Italy, things I'd mentioned wanting to do over the years, but had dismissed as impractical fantasies. There were also bank statements I'd never seen before. A separate savings account Robert had been quietly funding for years, with a balance that made me gasp. Attached was a note in his handwriting. "For when you're ready to live for yourself again. Love always, Robert." The account had grown to over $40,000. Enough to travel, to take classes, to do all those things I'd convinced myself were impossible. Robert had been planning for my freedom, even as I was volunteering for my own imprisonment. I was crying over the papers when my doorbell rang. Through the window, I saw Jennifer standing there with my youngest grandchild, Emma. At 8 years old, Emma was the only family member who'd never made demands of me, who seemed to actually enjoy my company rather than just my cooking. "Hi, Mom," Jennifer said when I opened the door. She looked uncomfortable, shifting Emma's hand from one of hers to the other. "Hello, sweetheart." "Emma, what a nice surprise." Emma hugged my legs. "Grandma, why didn't we have dinner at your house?" "Yesterday? Mommy said you were sick, but you don't look sick." Jennifer's face reddened. "Emma, we talked about this in the car." I knelt down to Emma's level. "I wasn't sick, honey. I just decided I wanted to do something different this year." "Like, what?" "I had dinner with a new friend. We cooked together and talked and had a very nice time." Emma considered this. "That sounds fun. Mommy burned the turkey yesterday and Daddy said words I'm not supposed to repeat." Jennifer winced. "Emma, why don't you go look at Grandma's garden while Mommy and I talk?" Once Emma was outside, Jennifer turned to me with an expression I couldn't quite read. "Mom, I owe you an apology." I waited. "Yesterday was horrible. I mean, the food was bad, but that wasn't the worst part. Without you there orchestrating everything, coordinating everyone, making sure people were happy, we all just sat around complaining. Marcus kept saying how this never would have happened if Dad were still alive, as if you died with him. She sat down heavily on my sofa. Linda spent the entire meal talking about how inconsiderate you were being. Pete brought up every time you'd ever said no to anything, like you were some kind of criminal for having boundaries, and I realized we've been treating you like hired help instead of our mother. The admission hung between us. When did that happen, Mom? When did we stop seeing you as a person with your own needs and start seeing you as just the woman who makes things happen for everyone else? I sat down across from her. I think it was gradual. When you were all young, taking care of everyone felt natural, necessary. But then you grew up and moved out, and somehow I stayed frozen in that caretaker role. And it was easier for everyone if I just kept doing what I'd always done. But you tried to tell us. All those times you said you were tired or asked for help, and we just dismissed you. You learned to dismiss me because I taught you that my complaints didn't have consequences. I kept doing everything anyway. Jennifer wiped her eyes. Marcus is furious with you. He keeps saying you ruined Thanksgiving for everyone. But sitting at that overpriced hotel restaurant yesterday, watching our kids stare at their phones while adults argued about who was going to coordinate Christmas, I realized you didn't ruin anything. You just stopped fixing everything. She looked around my peaceful living room. You look different, Mom. Relaxed. When was the last time I saw you relaxed during a holiday season? I couldn't remember. I want to ask you something, Jennifer continued, and I want you to be honest. When you think about Christmas, what do you feel? Without hesitation, I answered, dread. The word surprised us both with its starkness. Oh, Mom, Jennifer's voice broke. I'm so sorry. We've stolen the joy from every holiday for you, haven't we? Not stolen. I gave it away, but I'm taking it back now. Jennifer was quiet for a long moment. What would it look like if you didn't host Christmas either? I don't know yet. Maybe I'll travel. Maybe I'll volunteer somewhere. Maybe I'll just stay home and read books and drink hot chocolate without worrying about whether anyone else is happy. That sounds nice, actually. Emma came back inside then, her cheeks red from the cold. Grandma, your flowers are all sleeping. For winter. That's right, sweetheart. They'll come back in the spring. Like magic? Like hope, I said, looking at Jennifer. Sometimes things have to go dormant before they can grow again. That evening, Marcus showed up unannounced, his face stormy with the kind of righteous anger I'd seen him deploy in his law practice. He didn't wait for an invitation before pushing past me into the house. We need to settle this, Mom. This nonsense has gone on long enough. I closed the door calmly and followed him into the living room, where he was pacing like he owned the place. Jennifer told me about your conversation today, about how you're planning to abandon Christmas too. This is ridiculous. You're tearing this family apart out of spite. Sit down, Marcus. I don't want to sit down. I want you to explain to me why you're destroying everything Dad built. He loved these family gatherings. He would be ashamed of what you're doing. The mention of Robert hit like a physical blow, but it also ignited something fierce inside me. Don't you dare use your father's memory to manipulate me. I'm not manipulating anyone. I'm trying to save this family from falling apart because you've decided to be selfish in your old age. My old age? I felt my voice rise for the first time in this entire ordeal. Marcus, I am 68 years old. I am not ancient, and I am not senile. And I am not having a breakdown just because I've decided to stop sacrificing my well-being for everyone else's comfort. But that's what mothers do. That's what family means. No, that's what doormats do. And I'm done being one. Marcus stopped pacing and stared at me. In his shock, I saw something I'd been missing, genuine confusion. He really believed that my endless service was love, that my exhaustion was fulfillment, that my resentment was just temporary stress. "Marcus, sit down, please." Reluctantly, he perched on the edge of the sofa. "Tell me about Sarah's relationship with her mother." "What does that have to do with anything?" "Just answer the question." "Sarah's mom is difficult, very demanding. Sarah sets a lot of boundaries with her because she says her mother tries to control everything and guilt trip her into doing things she doesn't want to do." "And you support Sarah in setting those boundaries?" "Of course. Her mother is manipulative, and—" Marcus stopped, his face changing as he began to understand where I was going. "I'm not Sarah's mother, Marcus. I'm yours. But the dynamic you applaud Sarah for refusing is exactly what you expect from me." The silence stretched between us. I could see him struggling with this realization. "But it's different," he said finally. "You're not demanding or controlling. You're just your mom. You take care of everyone. It's who you are." "No, it's who I became because it was expected of me. And somewhere along the way, all of you stopped seeing the difference between what I chose to do and what I felt obligated to do." I pulled out Robert's folder from the coffee table where I'd left it earlier. "Your father left me this." Marcus looked through the papers, his expression changing as he read. "The travel plans, the secret savings account, the note about living for myself again." He knew, Marcus. He knew I was disappearing under the weight of taking care of everyone else. He was planning for my freedom even before he got sick. I didn't know. Because you weren't paying attention. None of you were. When I said I was tired, you heard complaining. When I asked for help, you heard nagging. When I expressed any need of my own, you heard selfishness." Marcus set the papers down carefully. For the first time since he'd arrived, he looked uncertain. "What do you want from us, Mom?" "I want you to see me as a person with my own dreams and needs and limitations, not as a service provider for the family. I want reciprocal relationships where I give and receive instead of just giving until I'm empty. I want to be invited to things, not just expected to provide things. But we do invite you to events I've planned that I'm hosting where I do all the work while you show up and consume. When was the last time one of you invited me to your house for a meal you cooked? When was the last time anyone asked what I wanted to do for my birthday, instead of just assuming I'd want to cook for everyone else?" The questions hung in the air, unanswered because we both knew the truth. "I don't know how to fix this," Marcus said quietly. "You start by accepting that it needs to be fixed. Then you start treating me like someone whose feelings and preferences matter as much as your own." He was quiet for a long time, staring at his hands. When he looked up, I saw something different in his face. Not the angry child demanding his mother fix everything, but a grown man beginning to reckon with his own behavior. "I called you selfish earlier. I'm sorry. Are you sorry because you said it, or sorry because it was wrong?" Another long pause. I think I'm sorry because I said it like it was a bad thing. Maybe you should be more selfish. Maybe we all should have wanted you to be." It was a start. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more incredible stories. The next chapter is going to reveal a secret that changes everything about Eleanor's situation. You won't. 3 days later, I was having morning coffee when Linda showed up at my door, looking haggard and desperate. My sister had always been the dramatic one, but something about her appearance alarmed me. Dark circles under her eyes, clothes that looked slept in, hands that shook slightly as she accepted the cup of coffee I offered. "Eleanor, we need to talk?" "Of course. Sit down." Linda perched on the edge of my sofa, clutching her coffee cup like a lifeline. "I owe you an apology, a big one. But first, I need to tell you something that's going to make you very angry." My stomach tightened. "What's wrong, Linda?" "It's about Mom's will, about the inheritance. Our mother had died 7 years ago, leaving what we'd thought was a modest estate that had been divided equally among the 3 of us siblings, Linda, Pete, and me. but Linda's expression suggested there was more to the story. When Mom died, you were so busy taking care of the funeral arrangements, dealing with Robert's declining health, making sure everyone else was okay. You just signed the papers the lawyer gave you without really examining them. Linda, what are you saying? My sister's face crumpled. Pete and I, we took advantage. The house, Mom's savings, her investment accounts, they were worth so much more than we told you. Instead of splitting everything 3 ways like Mom wanted, we told you the estate was smaller and split most of it between just the 2 of us. These. Coffee cup slipped from my hands, shattering on the floor. Neither of us moved to clean it up. How much? My voice sounded distant to my own ears. Your real share should have been about $250,000. We gave you $50 and kept the rest. The number hit me like a physical blow, $200,000. Money that could have changed my life, given me options, allowed me to hire help during Robert's illness instead of burning myself out caring for him alone. Why? It was all I could manage. Linda was crying now. Because we're selfish, horrible people. Because Pete was drowning in debt from his failed business, and I wanted things. I wanted the bigger house, the nice cars, the vacations. And you seemed so competent, so able to handle everything on your own. We told ourselves you didn't need the money as much as we did. But you knew. You both knew I was. Struggling after Robert died. You knew I was exhausted, overwhelmed, trying to hold everything together for everyone. We knew. And we let you keep struggling while we lived off money that should have been yours. Money that could have paid for help, for a housekeeper, for catering these damn holiday dinners you've been killing yourself over. The cruelty of it was breathtaking. While I'd been sacrificing my health and happiness to take care of everyone, 2 of the people I was caring for had been living off money they'd stolen from me. There's more, Linda whispered. The reason I'm telling you now, Pete's been arrested. Tax evasion. The IRS is going through all his financial records, and they're going to find the discrepancies in Mom's estate. It's all going to come out. Anyway, I sat in stunned silence, trying to process this betrayal. Not just the money, though that was devastating enough. The deeper betrayal of watching me struggle year after year, accepting my endless hospitality and service, knowing they had the means to help but choosing not to. All those times you complained about money, I said slowly. All those times you couldn't contribute to family dinners or help with expenses because you were tight. You were living off money you stole from me. Linda nodded miserably. Eleanor, I know there's no excuse. I know sorry isn't enough. But Bob's threatening to leave me over this. The kids won't speak to me, and I can't live with the guilt anymore. How long have you been planning to tell me? I wasn't. I was going to take it to my grave. But then you canceled Thanksgiving, and I watched our family fall apart, and I realized that maybe you pulled away because on some level you sensed that we weren't treating you right, that we were taking advantage. She was right, though I hadn't consciously understood it at the time. Some deep part of me had known that the relationship was unbalanced, that I was being used. Pete doesn't know I'm here, Linda continued. He's going to be furious that I told you, but you deserve to know before the lawyers get involved. I stood up abruptly, needing to move, to think. The broken coffee cup crunched under my feet. Get out, Eleanor. Get out of my house, Linda. Now. She stood, tears streaming down her face. I know you hate me. I know you'll never forgive me. But I am sorry. I'm sorrier than I've ever been about anything. You're sorry you got caught. If Pete hadn't been arrested, you never would have told me. Linda had no answer for that because we both knew it was true. After she left, I called my own lawyer, not the family attorney who had handled Mom's estate, but someone independent. By evening, I had a clear picture of my legal options and a plan for recovery. But more than that, I had clarity about my family that was both devastating and liberating. The people I'd been killing myself to serve had been living off money they'd stolen from me. The exhaustion I'd felt, the resentment I'd tried to suppress, the sense that I was giving more than I was receiving, it had all been absolutely accurate. I wasn't a bad daughter, sister, or mother for wanting to step back. I was someone who had finally recognized abuse and chosen to stop participating in it. The phone rang. Marcus's name on the caller ID. For the first time in my life, I let it go to voicemail. The next morning, I woke up with a sense of purpose I hadn't felt in decades. The betrayal hurt. It would probably hurt for a long time, but it had also freed me from any remaining guilt about putting myself first. My lawyer, Mrs. Chen, had been encouraging about the prospects for recovering the stolen inheritance. Financial elder abuse is taken very seriously by the courts, she'd explained, especially when there's clear documentation of the fraud. But beyond the legal victory, I was planning something more immediate and personally satisfying. I spent the morning making phone calls and arrangements. Then I drove to the bank and made a substantial withdrawal from Robert's secret account. Money he'd saved for my dreams, money that was truly mine. By afternoon, everything was in place. Marcus showed up around 4, just as I'd expected. He'd been trying to reach me since yesterday, probably to mediate whatever crisis Linda had created by confessing. Mom, Linda called me crying yesterday. She said she told you something about Grandma's will? She's not making much sense, but she seems to think you're going to sue her and Pete. I gestured for him to sit down. On the coffee table, I'd laid out copies of all the documents Mrs. Chen had helped me obtain. The original will, the probate records, the bank statements showing the real value of the estate. Marcus read through them, his face growing pale. Jesus! Mom, they stole from you $200,000 while I was caring for your dying father essentially alone, while I was exhausting myself hosting everyone for every holiday, while I was stretching every dollar to make ends meet. They were living off money that should have been mine. I had no idea. I swear, I had no idea. I believed him. Marcus had his flaws, but outright theft wasn't one of them. Here's what's going to happen, I said calmly. I'm suing for the full amount, plus interest and damages. Pete's already in legal trouble, so this will probably force him into bankruptcy. Linda will have to sell her house and liquidate assets. To pay me back, Marcus winced. Mom, I understand you're angry. I'm not angry, Marcus. I'm done. Done being taken advantage of. Done being the family doormat. Done caring more about other people's comfort than my own well-being. I handed him another set of papers. I'm also selling this house. What? He looked genuinely shocked. It's too big for me, and it's full of memories of decades of unpaid domestic labor. I've put it on the market. I close on a lovely one-bedroom condo next month. But where will we have Christmas? Where will the family gather? The questions revealed everything about how he still saw me, as the backdrop for his family experience, not as a person with my own life to live. That's not my problem to solve anymore, Marcus. If you want family gatherings, you'll have to organize them yourselves. Mom, please. I know we've taken you for granted, but we can change. We can do better. Some of you might. But Linda and Pete have shown me who they really are, and I'm not interested in giving them more opportunities to use me. I pulled out one more document, a plane ticket. I'm leaving for Italy next week. I'm going to take those cooking classes your father dreamed about me taking. I'm going to see art and eat food I didn't have to prepare and sleep as late as I want without anyone expecting me to cook breakfast. Marcus stared at the ticket like it was a foreign object. For how long? 6 weeks, maybe longer if I like it. But what about Christmas? What about it? The family will figure it out without me, the same way they'll figure out Easter and birthdays and every other occasion they've been expecting me to orchestrate. Marcus was quiet for a long time, processing this new reality. Finally, he asked, "Are you ever coming back?" I don't know yet. Maybe. But if I do, it will be on completely different terms. I won't be the family servant anymore. I won't host events unless people contribute equally to planning and work. I won't cook for anyone who takes my efforts for granted. And if we can't accept those terms, then you'll have learned an important lesson about the difference between love and exploitation. He left shortly after, looking dazed. I felt a pang of sympathy for him. His worldview was being forced to expand in uncomfortable ways. But that wasn't my responsibility to manage anymore. That evening, Amanda came over with takeout Chinese food and a bottle of wine. I told her about Linda's confession, about my legal plans, about Italy. "I'm so proud of you," she said, raising her glass in a toast. "You're rewriting the script of your own life." "It's terrifying," I admitted. "I've been defined by taking care of others for so long, I'm not sure who I am without that role. You're about to find out, and I bet she's amazing." As we ate lo mein straight from the containers and talked about art and travel and dreams, I realized Amanda was right. For the first time in decades, I was excited to discover who I was when I wasn't constantly caring for everyone else. The woman I was becoming felt powerful, free, and completely my own. 6 months later, I was sitting in a cafe in Florence, writing in the journal I'd started keeping during my travels. The morning light streamed through ancient windows, and the sounds of Italian conversation created a beautiful backdrop to my thoughts. My phone buzzed with a text from Amanda. "How's the Renaissance treating you? Missing you back home, but living vicariously through your photos." I smiled, typing back, "Learning to paint, eating incredible food, and remembering what it feels like to wake up excited about the day. Coming home next week with so many stories." The legal situation had resolved more quickly than expected. Pete's tax troubles had forced a full financial disclosure, making the theft from my mother's estate impossible to hide. Linda had sold her oversized house and most of her possessions to repay me, plus damages. I'd recovered nearly $300,000 total, enough to secure my financial independence permanently. More importantly, I'd recovered my sense of self. The Italy trip had extended into 3 months of discovery. I'd taken cooking classes where I learned to prepare food for the joy of creation rather than the burden of obligation. I'd studied art history and spent hours in museums, feeding parts of my soul I'd forgotten existed. I'd made friends with other travelers, people who saw me as Eleanor, the adventurous American artist, not Eleanor, the family caretaker. Marcus had flown out to visit me in my 2nd month abroad. The conversation we'd had walking along the Arno River had been the most honest of our relationship. "I've been thinking about what you said about love versus exploitation," he'd told me. "I think I confused loving you with using you. I told myself that expecting you to sacrifice everything for the family was honoring you, but really it was just convenient for me." "What changed your mind?" Sarah pointed it out. "After you left, she asked me, when was the last time we'd done something for you that you actually wanted, rather than something that made our lives easier?" I couldn't answer. We'd talked for hours about boundaries, about reciprocity, about the difference between chosen service and expected martyrdom. It had been painful, but necessary. "Are you happy, Mom?" he'd asked as we watched the sunset paint. "The river gold. I'm learning how to be." Now, preparing to return home, I felt ready to navigate whatever came next. My new condo was waiting, small, modern, decorated with artwork I'd collected during my travels. I'd enrolled in local art classes and volunteered to teach English to immigrants, ways of connecting with others that fed me rather than depleting me. The family dynamics were still evolving. Jennifer had started a tradition of hosting monthly dinners where everyone contributed equally to planning and preparation. She'd invited me to the next one, making clear that my attendance was wanted, not required, and my contribution would be my company, not my labor. Linda had written me several letters during my travels, apologies, updates on her therapy, tentative requests for eventual reconciliation. I wasn't ready to forgive yet, but I was no longer angry. Her betrayal had ultimately freed me from obligations that were destroying my well-being. Pete I'd cut off completely. Some betrayals were too deep to bridge. The most surprising development had been the number of women who'd reached out after hearing my story. Apparently, word had spread through my neighborhood and beyond about the grandmother who'd said no to endless servitude and yes to her own life. I'd received dozens of messages from women facing similar situations, asking for advice about setting boundaries with demanding families. I'd started thinking about writing a book, not a memoir, but a guide for women who'd lost themselves in caretaking roles and wanted to find their way back to their own lives. My phone rang as I was gathering my things to leave the cafe. Jennifer's name appeared on the screen. "Hi, sweetheart. Mom, how are you? I can't wait to hear about everything." "I'm wonderful. Truly wonderful. Are you ready for some stories?" "Always. But first, I have news. Emma has been asking if she can come stay with you in your new place sometime, just the two of us. She wants to learn to paint like her grandmother, the artist." Emma, the artist. Not Emma the cook, or Emma the hostess, or Emma the family organizer. The artist. "I would love that," I said, and meant it completely. As I walked through the cobblestone streets back to my hotel, I reflected on the journey that had brought me here. It had started with a simple refusal to cook Thanksgiving dinner alone. It had led to the discovery of theft, betrayal, and decades of exploitation disguised as love. But it had also led to this: a sense of freedom I hadn't felt since I was young, relationships based on genuine affection rather than expectation, and dreams that were finally my own to pursue. I thought about the woman I'd been a year ago, exhausted, resentful, disappearing under the weight of everyone else's needs. She'd been so afraid of being called selfish that she'd forgotten she was allowed to have a self at all. The woman I was now understood something that had taken 68 years to learn. Love doesn't require the complete erasure of your own needs and dreams. Real love, the kind worth having, wants you to flourish, not just serve. Tomorrow, I would fly home to my new life, my new boundaries, and my new understanding of what family could be when it was based on choice rather than obligation. Tonight, I would have one more gelato and toast myself for having the courage to change everything. "Salute," I whispered to the Italian sunset, raising my spoon to the sky. Here's to new beginnings. That's the end of Eleanor's incredible journey from exploitation to empowerment. If this story resonated with you, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more stories about people who found the courage to change their lives. What did you think about Eleanor's transformation? Let me know in the comments below.